Welcome to our presentation of Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Samadhi Pod, Overview and Summary. We're bringing to you what we've learned in conversation and study with Baba Haridas Ji, our Guru here at Mount Madonna Center. And we will begin with a prayer. I'll ask you to open your voices to the notes of the afternoon raga, starting with Sa. Sa. Ni. Sa. Using these notes, we'll chant a Vedic mantra for purification and offering. You may follow along in call and response, reading from the screen share. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya. Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Sarvesham Swasti Bhavatu. Sarvesham Swasti Bhavatu. Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu. Sarvesham Shanti Bhavatu. Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu. Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu. Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu. Loka Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samastaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Together. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. From asat, from ignorance, lead us to sat, to truth. From tamas, from darkness, lead us to light. From death, mrityu, lead us to the nectar of immortality. May all beings find health. May all beings find peace. May all beings find fullness. May all beings find what is auspicious. May there be peace in all the lokas. Om. Peace. Peace. Peace.
The Yoga Sutras are a foundational source text or scripture based on Samkhya philosophy. Each sutra or aphorism offers profound insight on the nature of consciousness, creation, and human life. They were encoded by the sage Patanjali perhaps 2,500 years ago, and give a classical explanation for why yoga works, how to practice it, and what the results of its practice are. The Yoga Sutras are found in 4 books or chapters. We will focus on Book 1, entitled Samadhipad, the chapter on higher consciousness. Each sutra is an aphorism or adage, a short, insightful phrase that brings truthful understanding. Think of the word suture in English, the thread that stitches together what has been torn apart. In some ways, we are cut apart from ourselves. The Yoga Sutras binds us together in wholeness with our true self. The sutras themselves are very brief, but they may not be easily understood. Therefore, wise scholars and students have written commentaries to explain the sutras. Sri Vyas was the original commentator, and all others refer to his commentaries. Baba Haridas, a master yogi, author, and inspiration for Mount Madonna and for us, wrote commentaries and taught Yoga Sutras. All that we are sharing with you today, we learned from him. Samadhipad has 51 sutras, and we will begin with the first 18 sutras, highlighting the Kilakam sutras, or the keystone sutras, that are pivotal to unlocking meaning. The format will be to chant, translate, and comment on the key sutras, while only commenting on the others. To preview and support understanding, let me share about the ways the sutras flow. The first 4 sutras are grouped together. They are all key to our understanding, as they give the blessing of the beginning, define yoga, define the state of yogic union, and define ordinary human life. The next group of sutras, 5 through 11, explain the types of thoughts that humans have, with 5 being the key sutra. The next group is sutras 11 through 16, with 12 as the keystone sutra. It explains the mechanism of attaining yoga, union with our true self. The last group will be sutras 17 and 18, which define states of higher consciousness and the knowledge each reveals, and the state of higher consciousness that is beyond any needing or revealing of knowledge.
We'll now continue our study with beginning the chanting of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Babaji always stressed the chanting, both that we open up to the vibrations of the Sanskrit and that we understand the sutras in the original language vibrationally and then through translation. We will start with the chanting of sutras 1 to 4 in call and response, hearing the translations in between chanting of each of the first 4 sutras of Samadhipad, the first iteration of Patanjali Yoga Darshan.
Atha yoganuशासनम्.
Now, the teachings of yoga are being explained.
Yogaschitavritti nirodhaha.
Control of thought waves in the mind is yoga.
Tada drashtu swarupe avasthanam.
Then, when the thought waves are controlled, the seer is established in his or her own true nature.
Vritti sarupyamitaratra.
In other states, when the seer is not established in his or her true nature, the seer appears the same as the thought waves in the mind. Sutra 1 begins with the word atha. It is an auspicious beginning, and it's often found in scripture as the first word and often as the last word. It's the blessing of now, the eternal, ever-present moment, atha. And how auspicious to begin the study of yoga. Atha yoga, the second word of the sutra, yoga, union, both the state and the process of becoming whole, of being united with our true self. And in this particular sutra and throughout the sutras, yoga means higher consciousness, samadhi. Anushasanam is discipline. Yoga is a discipline, both in the sense of something to be studied, as well as in the practice, the regular, disciplined practice, the regular, disciplined study, the regularity of coming to know one's own true self. So we're very fortunate to begin this moment of study together with its very auspicious blessing.
The second sutra of Samadhipad is said to be the quintessential sutra of the whole of the Patanjali Yoga Darshan. It describes the method by which yoga is achieved. We are not asked to believe anything by faith, but just to take on the discipline of the practice in order to discover, to awaken to a state that already exists inside of us, the state of yoga. The sutra begins with the word yoga, union, and then goes on, citta, the field of consciousness, vritti, modifications of that field, including thoughts, emotions, memories, and imaginations, and ends with nirodha. Nirodha, control, restraint, calming. So yoga is the control of the modifications or thought waves in the mind. Sutra 3 then says, when that control has been achieved, then the seer, the self, is established avasthanam in its own form, swarupa. Again, we're not going anywhere or acquiring anything that isn't already here and now. Yoga is achieved by removing the obstacles. The obstacles, our thinking, get in the way of seeing, feeling, being our true reality. The universal, infinite, all-pervasive self, consciousness.
So before going on to Sutra 4, going back to Sutra 2, yoga is the control of the thought waves in the mind. The vritti, thought waves, are sometimes described or translated as revolutions, the way that thoughts revolve in the being. And these are thoughts and emotions that disturb, that come, that are constant. I'm guessing that we're all very familiar with the, quote, thought waves in our mind, and that through the practices of yoga, we can learn to, using the word nirodha, control decrease, thin, be in a right relationship to those revolutions in our minds and hearts. And Sutra 3, the result, when there is a perfect control or an absolutely right relationship of mind, body, heart, and spirit, then there's nothing to disturb. And that which is true, the reality, shines forth in the heart of the individual. Sutra 4 goes on to say what human beings are like during our normal life experience. It begins at other times, and at other times, it's as if we are our thoughts and emotions, and our identity is fully within our egoic self. So when the disturbances are not controlled, the individual's fully identified with the thoughts and feelings. The individual's confused and thinks, I am my thoughts, I am my feelings, my life is only all of this. And that is describing, Sutra 4 just describes the way we often go through our daily life. It's natural, since these first 4 sutras talk about thoughts, that Sri Patanjali goes on in the next group of sutras to describe and teach about thoughts. Certainly he's given the injunction to learn to be in right relationship and control the thoughts, so it's natural that we would ask, well, what are thoughts?
We find ourselves in feedback loops of our own thinking patterns that trap us sometimes in negative behaviors and patterns that don't serve our self-development and self-interest. So getting to notice the different kinds of thoughts is one of the ways that we can start to unravel those binding patterns. Sutra 5, Vrittayah panchatayah klishta aklishtaha. Sutra 5 defines that there are 5 panch kleshas, afflictions, which are the generic causes of binding us in our state of ignorance, thinking that I am the doer and that whole creation revolves around me. And then it says that these types of thoughts can be klishta, which means afflictive or binding or painful, or aklishta, non-binding or non-painful. So this gives the perspective that thoughts can be binding or thoughts can be liberating. Of course, liberation is beyond thought and is about the experience and the revealing of our own true self, which is beyond all the phenomenal thinking about it. But along the way, understanding can help. Understanding, perceiving, looking, listening, deeply reflecting on our own internal experience can give us the perspective we need to free ourselves. So, in the way that firefighters sometimes use fire to fight fire, we can use thoughts to overcome thoughts. So thoughts can be tending towards binding us or tending towards liberating us. So all of our experience can be seen as the context for our learning, for our self-development, and nature and situations will provide us with the exact context that we need to look and see into ourselves more deeply and fully, that we can become better human beings. Babaji also said, when a person says, I want to become a better person, that is the beginning of yoga. So what are the 5 types of thought waves that can be both trapping or klishta, or liberating, freeing, or aklishta? Those thoughts are described in the next sutra. Pramana, viparyaya, vikalpa, nidra, smritayaha. 5 forms of thought waves. Praman, correct cognition. Viparyaya, mistaken cognition. Vikalpa, imagination. Nidra, sleep. And smriti, memory. Praman, or correct cognition, both refers to correct sensual perception of the objects that surround us through clear senses when the mind is clear of distractions. Viparyaya is a mistaken conception where we see something, let's say a shadow in the night, and we think a person is sneaking up on us. And then we look more closely and see it's only a bush moving in the wind in the moonlight. Imagination is fanciful thinking, and imagination also is our future thinking. We're imagining things that we project based on our past experience into a possible future scenario. Nidra is said to be a thought wave because we notice when we wake up that we feel like we've slept well. So something was happening, although the mind is not recording. In terms of dreams, it's a mixture of imagination and memory with desire. So a mixed form of thinking, and most of our thoughts are mixed. Memory, of course, is the recollection of past experience. So all these thoughts can be analyzed in their distinction, knowing that in most of the time, our thoughts are mixed. We are neither completely in correct perception nor completely in incorrect perception. We are neither completely in the future or the past, but all of those are mixing into our present perception. So, what is behind the thought waves is the afflictions, the ignorance that thinking is the description and the source of our own being, where actually being itself, undiversified, all-pervasive being, is the source of our own self-identity. Thoughts are superimposed on this infinite being, and being becomes becoming, and our lives unfold in ways that can bind us and ways that can liberate us. Yoga leads us in the path of liberation.
So then, to review the section or grouping on the thoughts, 5 thought waves or modifications of the mind are of 5 kinds. Some are painful and some are not painful. 6, they are right knowledge, wrong knowledge, fancy or imagination, dreamless sleep, and memory. 7, right knowledge is based on direct perception, inference, and scriptural testimony. 8, wrong knowledge is a false conception of an object, the real form of which does not correspond to such a mistaken conception. 9. An image created by words without any substance behind them is fancy or imagination. 10. The modification of the mind in which there is no mental content is called dreamless sleep. And the last sutra in that group, memory is that modification in which the experience of an object is not forgotten or lost. This leads now to Sutra 12, one of the keynote sutras. I'll read the English translation and then you'll hear it again when we chant it. They, meaning these modifications or revolutions within the body-mind, are controlled by persistent practice and dispassion.
Abhyasa vairagyabhyam tannirodha.
They, the modifications, are controlled by practice and dispassion. So it's natural. Sri Patanjali asks us to learn to control the thought waves. He describes what the thought waves are. After hearing them and hearing that they're painful, we naturally want to know how to control them. We ask within ourselves, now what? And Sutra 12 is the answer. They are controlled by persistent practice and dispassion. Sutra 13 goes on to say what persistent practice is: effort for being firmly established in that state is called persistent practice. All of us who studied with Babaji learned that he said persistent practice over and over again. First, he would write in answer to so many questions, regular sadhana. That would be the cure. He wrote it so many times that he started to just write the initials RS. He said that so often that we started to say to him, so RS, right? So persistent practice is the way to change and transform the thought waves in our mind using effort. Effort, the word for effort is vigor, enthusiasm. It can be gentle. It doesn't mean forceful. It means repeated, constant, vigorous enthusiasm for practice. Sometimes practice is dry, sometimes practice is fabulous. Regardless, it's repeated. Practice and dispassion are both given in Sutra 12, and they're said to be like the wings of a bird. So what makes the bird fly towards its destination? The bird flies with its two wings. Practice, the enthusiastic, vigorous, persistent effort to practice, and dispassion. And dispassion in the Sanskrit is no coloring, just not coloring experience with our own selfishness, our own desires, our own self-interest, our own perception. It's just the is of the experience without any coloring, a state of neutrality. So, and dispassion arises from practice. Dispassion is not lack of passion. Dispassion is not caring. Dispassion is not apathy. It's simply not overlaying what truly is, such that the intelligence of creation and the consciousness of being is experienced and identified with, rather than the egoic individuality of me and mine. So practice and dispassion, the way to control the thought waves and emotions that can torment us and bring suffering. More about dispassion.
We can look at this whole process as a process of deconditioning the mind. And the first is to clarify the thinking process and to inspect, to do introspection, reflection on our own self-interest and how that is coloring our experience. Babaji would say that 98% of our feelings and our experience are dominated by self-interest. So once we see something about our self-interest, or we see a pattern that's not serving our self-development, or we see what's behind a fear that we experience deeply and disturbs our mind. Once we see it, then we can let it go. Then we can allow ourselves to transform and have a different experience, awaken a different potential. And we can find and see, reflect on, that a change within us also changes the whole world around us. Just as when we're in a bad mood, everything looks gloomy. When we're in a good mood, everything looks bright. In the same way, the internal change that we can go through in the process of freeing ourselves through the practices of yoga can bring us into a different relationship with others, and that will give others a chance to be in a different relationship with us. And this is part of the whole unfolding of yoga practice within our lives. Knowledge and dispassion, knowledge of the real, gives us dispassion for the unreal. We don't need to be afraid of something which was an incorrect knowledge or incorrect vision. We can free ourselves and we can become whole. This is the goal of yoga. And this knowledge and dispassion continues to deepen through the practices of the internal limbs of concentration, meditation, and samadhi, which are formally introduced in the third book of yoga as the limbs of Ashtanga Yoga in their completion. And samadhi is introduced here in Samadhipad in Sutra 17.
So we'll go on to chant both Sutra 17 and 18.
Vitarka vicharanandasmita rupanugamat sampragnata.
Complete high consciousness, sampragnata samadhi, is that which is accompanied by reasoning, reflection, ecstasy, and pure eye sense.
Virama pratyayabhyasa purvaha sanskara sheshonyaha.
Persistent practice of the highest non-attachment, paravairagya, brings cessation of all thought waves, leaving only remnant impressions, samskaras of cessation, in the mind. This is the other kind of higher consciousness, asampragyata samadhi.
As the mind field becomes calm and the meditation becomes continuous, and the mind is dwelling in the object persistently, consistently, and peacefully, the object starts to reveal itself. And first, the object is revealed in terms of the sabda, or the name, the sound that's denoting the object, the artha, the essence of the object itself, its own essential form, and gyan, the meaning that describes the object and gives it context in our experience. Normally, those three aspects of the object are appearing together as we have our experience of the world. In the meditative process, we start to experience a merging in the object, which is called samadhi. Sam means perfect, even, peaceful, controlled. Dhi is consciousness. So samadhi is the perfection of our inwardly flowing conscious awareness that gives us knowledge. So this first whole category of samadhi is called samprajñata. Prajña is knowledge. Sam is complete. Samprajñata, complete knowledge. And in Sutra 17, that complete knowledge is described within 4 stages. The first one, savitarka. Vitarka means reasoning or even argumentation. So that reasoning concerns the name, the essential form, and the knowledge concerning the object. The mind has already been deconditioned from its dwelling in likes and dislikes, desire and aversion, and self-interest. So those aspects of our outward going mind have been calmed in the practices of yoga leading up to concentration and meditation. And now the object which was seen as a word denoting an object that has a certain meaning, that object starts to be revealed in these 3 different ways. Now the word we can take as testimonial knowledge. So the word can also be a form of right knowledge or praman, as was described in the Sutra on Praman. The word that denotes the object can be accurate, but in different languages, the same object will be described in different words. So cow in English, gai in Hindi, vaca in Spanish, all denote that being that we know as cow. But the words are different. So the words are relative to the context of our culture and our understanding of the culture that also gives gyan, knowledge about what is being described. Now in India, for example, cows are viewed as sacred. So cow is sacred. In America, cow is cattle, which are kept, herded, milked, and consumed. A different knowledge about the same animal. a relative knowledge, an inferential knowledge in terms of the knowledge that's described in praman or right knowledge. So it can be a correct understanding, but it's relative. So what is the indivisible, essential aspect of the object itself? It is artha. Artha is the essence of the object. It is the thing in itself, in its own moment of transformation. It is experienced by direct perception and not influenced any further, discriminated from the name that refers to it and the knowledge which describes it. In samadhi, the mind keeps going to the deeper level. And that essential object we can see, feel, and know by direct perception, whether it be a cow or the mantra Om.
So Babaji helped us come to understandings about samadhi and Sutra 17. And of course, the understandings come through practice. But he drew these diagrams for us, and I continue to find them very helpful. You can see the person meditating, or at least you see the head of the meditator. And in this drawing, Babaji was using the holy apple as the object of concentration. And you can see how he describes that the mind has controlled all the disturbances except for thoughts about the name, the form, and the meaning of the object. And Dayanand just went into that, a description of that. And the reason that this samadhi is called with reasoning is the mind continues to think about the object in this way. And as Dayanand mentioned, this sutra describes the samadhis with revealed knowledge. And as the mind and its focus and concentration deepens, more and more knowledge is revealed, and the disturbances continue, but at subtler and subtler and subtler levels. So in this particular drawing, we see that the mind is only disturbed by the name, form, and meaning, and it's called savitarka samadhi, the samadhi with reasoning. And then below on the chart, you can see that the form alone shines forth in the mind. The relative name, be it cow or some other word, the relative meaning, be it sacred or food, those two relative knowings drop away and the form alone shines forth in the mind, and the mind identifies completely with the form and knows it in its reality. And that is nirvitarka samadhi. It's still within the samadhi of knowledge, but it is without any reasoning. The mind then becomes more subtle in its concentration, and the next level of samadhi, which is within the samadhis with knowledge, the sampragyat samadhis, but the object of concentration now, the mind penetrates the form and comes to reflection, savichar samadhi, samadhi with reflection. And the form in this chart, you can see the next chart that Babaji gave to us, explaining savichar samadhi, and space, time, and cause are known to be, that the form is known within them. The form is known to exist in space, to exist in time, and to have a cause. And the mind is disturbed only by these three subtle aspects of space, time, and cause. Savichar samadhi, a very subtle state of mind, an absorption of mind. Then it's revealed to the mind that time and space are relative, and cause alone shines forth in the mind. Nirvichar samadhi, the reflection of the time and space have dropped away, and the cause alone shines forth in the mind.
We can see from the description given of the levels of samprajñata samadhi, samadhi with knowledge, that there is a continuum of a progression of knowledge and dispassion. Knowledge of the physical reality that we experience through our senses, through name, form, and idea, is a relative type of knowledge compared to experiencing the subtle essence of the object alone within its transformation of time, space, and causality. So the knowing of the different aspects of the object perceived allows the mind to then have dispassion for that level of knowledge and make a transition, an inward transition, to experiencing the subtle level of the knowledge of the object. And even that subtle engrossment in the object gives us an experience of the causation of the object and the aspects of its transformation in time and space become something that we can let go of, something that we can have through dispassion. An awareness arises that there is a cause, and that cause is the I sense, which is first experienced as joy or bliss. Because when we awaken to the I sense, we are awakening to that universal being that pervades both the object and the subject ourselves. Now the mind is absorbed in joy or bliss of its own being. Not a relative joy as in happiness and sadness, but an inner awakening of beatitude and Anand. This joy is also external to the essence of pure I sense, undiversified awareness, pure consciousness, all-pervasive, ever-present. And we come to know the essence of all things in the purification of the mind through the process of samprajñata samadhi, accompanied by knowledge and dispassion.
So it could be said that after savichar comes sanand, with bliss, that the I sense is of the nature of bliss, and that when the mind has penetrated or merged in the cause, there is bliss. And then from sanand comes sasmita. The focus is the pure being, I sense alone, the cause. But it's also come to be known that there's some engrossment beyond knowledge once all knowledge is gained. And the descriptions of the progression from sasmita samadhi to the samadhis beyond any knowing is also given. That brings us to Sutra 18.
When we look at the transition between samadhi with knowledge and samadhi beyond the perfection of knowledge, we can refer to two aspects. First, the purification of mind, in this case, buddhi, the discriminative intellect, has become so deep and so ultimately reflective, so undisturbed through the process of nirodha, that it can perceive, understand, be aware of, and discriminate the difference between all-pervasive consciousness and its reflection in the mind. This is known as discriminative wisdom, and it arises out of sattva buddhi, the purification of buddhi. When that discrimination is made, a different kind of dispassion arises, which is known as supreme dispassion, which was described in Sutra 16. The highest non-attachment, para-vairagya, is acquired when, due to the knowledge of the self, purusha, there is a cessation of desire for manifestations of nature, the guna. So everything that is transforming is part of nature. Our mind itself is part of nature. And it's the desire that we have to experience that keeps us involved with our experience. Now that desire has been purified. And the purity of the truth has arisen. And there's dispassion for the continuance of the relationship of duality expressed in self and other, of perceiver and perceived, of knower and known, of self and object, and the mind merges in the self alone. This is the transition that's called asampragnata samadhi, the samadhi beyond all knowing.
So that completes the first 18 sutras of Book 1 and the groupings through asampragyat samadhi, the samadhi beyond any needing to know. And we'll conclude with a final prayer.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.